the great thing about what I do as a business professor at Truett McConnell University, when I go into a business class that I'm teaching, let's just say marketing, I'm able to talk about marketing, but I'm also taught every day. I'm also able to talk about Jesus. And what does
Yeah.
my relationship with Jesus have to do with marketing, or how I behave as a marketing professional, how I interact with people as a marketing professional, or how I handle money? I teach personal finance. Your relationship with Jesus Christ or as a believer has everything to do with how you handle money. Everything.
Hello, and welcome to the Simple Charity Podcast, a show about learning to love generously like Jesus. I'm your host, Brian Grasso. Today on the show, I talk with Dr. Stacy Hall, a businessman, business professor, and VP of Advancement at Truett McConnell University, a private Baptist college in Georgia. Stacy and I discuss higher education as a philanthropic cause. What impact does it have on the kingdom of God to invest in the Christian formation of the next generation? I'm interested in this because a significant amount of philanthropy goes to higher education, and some of the most sophisticated fundraising efforts in the country are connected to universities. I am admittedly skeptical that much of this giving is having as big of an impact as it could be having in other sectors, especially when the giving is directed towards large, wealthy, secular institutions. Stacy and I talk about this, and I ask him to make the case for giving to Christian higher education. Stacy also shares much of his own faith journey and a parallel journey of generosity in his personal life. Join me for a conversation about business, generosity, and the impact of Christian higher education. If you are listening to this podcast, this is your show. So as always, please send me your thoughts, questions, and suggestions at brianwithanI@simplecharity.org. And if the show is helpful to you, please click a 5-star rating in your podcast app. Also click like and subscribe. This helps the algorithm get the show out to more listeners. Thanks so much for taking those little actions to help out our show. I'm so glad you're with us today.
Hi, my name is Melissa, and I serve as a Simple Charity philanthropic advisor to individuals, couples, families, foundations, and family offices in the Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill area of North Carolina, but also to clients around the country. If you're curious about your own generosity journey and would like help thinking through a philanthropic strategy with intentionality to discern where God is calling you to love people, to find excellent nonprofits to partner with, or to understand the impact of your current grant making, I would love to connect and share more about Simple Charity's philanthropic advising offerings. You can connect with me at melissahall@simplecharity.org. That's Melissa Hall at simplecharity.org. And you can learn more about us at simplecharity.org. That's simplecharity.org.
Well, Stacy Hall, welcome to the Simple Charity Podcast.
Hey, Brian. Thanks. It's good to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Stacy, what are you grateful for today?
A lot of things. It might take up all of our time. I'm grateful for life, for breath, for my family, especially. We're empty nesters, Brian, and our kids are kind of launching right now. So every day, Ivy and I, my wife, we are talking about how proud we are of our kids and growing their relationship with Christ, and how they're finding their own footing, which is exciting. But Ivy and I also started teaching at our church college youth and young adult Sunday school class, and which has really been a blessing as we've gotten to know a lot of those new students and building some relationships with them, and being able to have the opportunity to pour into them. The great thing about that age, college and young adults, and most of our listeners can probably remember this, or maybe they're even going through it, it's a wonderful time of your life. It can be challenging, it can be frustrating, it can be nerve-wracking, but it's so awesome because they're at this all these different crossroads. And I remember when I was that age, that's when I really committed to having a more deeper meaningful relationship with Jesus Christ. So I am
Yeah.
thankful for the opportunity to be able to pour into young people.
Mm. That's awesome. That's a great precursor for our conversation today and what we'll talk about in your work at Truett McConnell. Stacy, I'd love to start by just hearing your story. Can you give us a overview of your
Sure.
career journey and what led you to where you are now?
Well, I'd be happy to. Well, I'm currently vice president for advancement at Truett McConnell University, private Christian university up in Northeast Georgia. Within that role, I oversee institutional marketing, alumni relations, development, and I'm also serve as a professor in our business school. My background is probably like most people. It's kind of a windy road. And that's one of the things I like to share with young people is, you don't have to have your end goal in your first job. It's okay
Yeah.
to develop. I used to think, Brian, I'm not to get off on a tangent, but I used to think many years ago that, God had one purpose for us. But, now that I'm kind of long in the tooth, I think it's more about, uh, he does have a purpose for us, but it can be seasonal. When my purpose 20 years ago was completely different than it is today. So I'm from North Carolina originally. I graduated from East Carolina University. All I wanted to do was coach. I wanted to coach football. I was a PE teacher, so I coached and taught in the public school system in North Carolina for about 5 years. Coached a variety of sports. Did coach football. Ended up being a head baseball coach for a while. I loved it. I was not very good at it. I had a lot of lessons to learn. I needed some mentorship, and I did everything wrong. Learned a lot of valuable lessons. Ended up after 5 years doing that, went to Georgia Southern. I got a master's in sport management. Worked with the baseball team there. Was a graduate assistant teaching some PE classes. Finished that up. Went to Florida State, where I earned my PhD in sport administration. Worked with the Florida State athletic department for about 6 years. 3 years as a graduate assistant while I was pursuing my doctorate. And then 3 years after that, technically, I worked for their multimedia rights holder that managed all of the radio, print, TV, digital sponsorship rights for the university. So ended up being the director of sales and sponsorships for Florida State Athletics. After my 6 years at Florida State, went to my last year there. I got married. So Ivy and I met while at Florida State. We moved to Houston, Texas, which is have you ever been
That's
to
a big move.
Houston?
I have not been to Houston. I've been to
It is
Dallas
hot
and Austin.
and humid.
Okay.
I mean, it is hot and humid. But we were in Houston for 4 years. I worked at the University of Houston. Again, working for a different rights holder, managing multimedia rights for the University of Houston athletic program. Was there 4 years, then went to Vanderbilt. I was at Vanderbilt University for 3 years, doing the same thing, managing multimedia rights for Vanderbilt athletics. And then the company that I was working for at the time, ISP Sports, which ended up getting bought by IMG. Maybe some of your listeners have heard about IMG, but they moved me to a conference vice president role. So I was managing multimedia rights for the SEC itself. At that time, our company owned the multimedia rights to 9 of the 12 properties in the SEC, plus the SEC conference itself. So we sold, the championship rights, baseball, basketball, football championship rights, corporate sponsorship rights, things of that nature. But I was on the road a lot, Brian.
So sold those to whom?
Corporations, companies.
Corporations.
Right. We sold sponsorships. So the way that business works, multimedia rights, these companies will go, and Learfield's the biggest player. There's several other players, but Learfield's the biggest player in the college market today. They'll go into a school like University of Georgia and say, hey, we're going to pay you $15 million. I'm just throwing this number out. We're going to pay you $15 million a year. In exchange, you give us these assets, video board, game programs, signage, hospitality, all this package, this bundle of rights. In exchange, we're going to go out, we're going to sell those rights. We'll pay for our expenses. We'll pay for your guarantee. We get to recoup whatever's left. As profit, that'll be our profit. Some deals might have revenue sharing once you hit certain thresholds. But we would, the AT&Ts of the world, the State Farms of the world, the Bank of Americas of the world, we sold Delta, sold all kinds of sponsorships for that. So it was
So
great.
it was a sales job.
It was a sales job. I was a
Yeah.
regional sales manager. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. It was
And kind
it
of
started out
niche industry.
being-
An industry that someone with a PhD in sport administration would be well qualified to do.
Well, it was a little unusual for somebody in my role to have a doctorate, but I've always been an educator at every step. I've been teaching in some capacity or served as an adjunct professor in some way, and so I wanted to, teaching has always been important to me.
Yeah.
As a way to give back and just share what God's done for me for others.
Yeah.
So I was on the road a lot. I was on the road 100 nights a week every year. Or excuse me, 100 nights a year every year. And my kids were getting younger. I think my kids were probably the age your kids are now. And, I had to make the decision if I wanted to chase money, if I wanted to chase title, if I wanted to chase, a career versus being invested as a father, being invested as a husband, being invested in my community, being invested in my church. And I could not do those things being on the road as much as I was. So I resigned.
You were managing multimedia rights, you said, for the SEC, like the...
Yeah.
That's a big job. I probably paid pretty well, and
yes,
it's a big job.
It was big. No, I had a team.
There's money in sports.
I managed 80 full-time employees. So every property, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, Arkansas, SEC, we had a team there. I was the corporate guy that went around to each of those properties, helping and facilitating and managing on a corporate level. But yes, it was a big responsibility. I was tasked with raising over $114 million a year with 10%, minimum 10% growth every year. I mean, that gets, the pressure, it was a pressure cooker, but I loved it. I mean, I did enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. Went to some great games. I learned a ton, made some great friends. But again, going back to what we talked about earlier with seasons, in fact, this is interesting, Brian. When the day I resigned, I was offered a promotion with the company to be more on a national level.
Wow.
And I just, I knew God wanted me to be present with my family, engage in my community, and engage with my church.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, that's what God was calling me to do. So I resigned, and that's when I accepted a position here at Truett McConnell University, which quickly became me serving as an athletic director here. So I served as an athletic director here for about roughly 6 years. Also taught some business classes. Stepped away for and I love that. But by the end of that 6-year period, I had been in athletics for 27 years. And the thing about athletics, Brian, I mean, you have to love it to work in it, but you work every night, not every night, but most nights and most weekends. And it's just, after 27 years, I decided to take a step back from that. And my wife was building a business at that time, and we decided to, she had sold that business, and we decided to get more involved in real estate. And I got elected as a county commissioner and started serving as the chairman of the hospital board. And there were just a lot of things going on in the community that I needed time to really dig into. So I stepped away from Truett McConnell for about 5 years, but I missed the classroom. I missed pouring into young people. So I came back after 5 years. That was in fall of 22, and I've been here ever since. Came back as a full-time business professor. A couple years ago, they asked me to step into the vice president role, which is the role I'm currently in.
Hmm. So, Stacy, I'm curious about your faith journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you could share a little bit more about that. And I'm also curious about, you're in advancement now that includes marketing, includes fundraising, and I'm curious about if your faith journey influenced kind of a journey of giving and kind of how you process giving as a business professor, as a business person, a salesman, over those years. So I guess, is there a story there as well of your own kind of?
There is.
Yeah.
Brian, I will go ahead and tell you, as the case is with me most times, is because I screwed it up really bad in the beginning. I was raised in a Christian family. I gave my life to Christ when I was 10 years old. Baptized very shortly after that. And I meant it. I meant it. I was sincere. Yeah. I knew who Jesus Christ was. I knew I wanted him in my life. And I was saved at 10 years old. And then you start going through life, as all believers do. And you get bombarded with different things as you walk along your path. I ended up going to a college, which I enjoyed. It was a great school, learned a lot, but I started questioning things, questioning how the world works, questioning my faith, questioning, did Jonah really get swallowed by a fish, and all these things. I mean, I'm just questioning these things.
Right.
But the good news about our faith is it's good. God wants you to crack open that Bible and ask questions. So I did. I had a lot of discussions with my dad about our faith, and I remember I was my last semester in college. I was student teaching. I was volunteering as a basketball coach, and I just wasn't. I knew I wasn't living the life to lead young people the way I should. And that really, really deeply convicted me. And at the same time, I was being mentored, witnessed, discipled by another fellow assistant basketball coach, Steve Etsinas. He'll never know how much he meant in my life. I don't even know where he is right now, but he wrapped his arm around me. He loved on me. He poured into me. He didn't judge me. He just loved on me. And I think that, sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that.
All good.
But that had a profound impact on my life. And I made a decision then that not only would I do a better job in growing in my relationship with Jesus Christ and living a life that's Christ-like, not perfect. I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm a sinner. I mean, I need Jesus like everybody else. Nobody's perfect, but I'm going to make a better effort to live a life that is Christ-like. And I want others to see Christ in me. And I want to lead young people to help them grow in their faith so that they can then live lives that are more Christ-like. And since then, I have really tried to focus on mentoring and helping and encouraging and pouring into young people. And, there's a lot of things I'm bad at, but I think God has blessed me with opportunities to be able to invest in young people. And I've tried to take advantage of those opportunities.
Do you see your role as VP advancement as a way of doing that kind of in an institutional level, and kind of how do you understand your current role?
It is. I mean, I'm still teaching. I teach a couple classes a semester. Cool. It's more on a macro level, probably, I guess.
Yeah.
Because now in my role, well, let me answer it this way. So I was offered this job 4 times. I turned it down three
Oh,
times.
wow.
I
Really?
turned down the president of the university
That's
offered me
interesting.
this job 3 times, and I turned it down because I loved what I was doing. I was
Mm,
teaching. I was a full-time teacher,
mm,
doing my thing, doing what God called me to do, and I was good. I was great with it.
mm,
But then the fourth time he asked me, I said, "Okay, look, Ivy and I will commit this to prayer for a week. And we did. We were on our knees. We were deep in prayer for a week, seeking God's guidance and His will for our lives. Because it's a two-person gig. When you're in this kind of role, as a lot of roles are, it's a two-person gig, and I'm blessed to have an unbelievable, phenomenal wife. Um, but I felt God was saying at the time, and again we're talking about seasons. At the time, He was saying, you might be able to affect, or could be able to affect a bigger impact in this role, helping raise support, financial support for scholarships, for mission trips, for faculty, for other academic support. We have a global missions center here. We have a creation research center here. So in being able to raise money that supports all those initiatives, I do believe that I've been able to have a little bit bigger impact. But I still have a toe in the water in teaching because I teach a couple classes a semester.
yeah. So yeah, tell me about that impact, because I think, higher education is one of the nonprofit sectors that raises the most money. You have the
Yeah.
most sophisticated advancement and development shops in the
Hmm.
country are the higher education ones, and there's a capacity for attracting larger checks. There's a capacity to build these kind of deep relationships, because
Yeah.
a lot of times the donors are alumni. Some fraction of those alumni are going to go out to be uber successful,
Hmm.
and they're going to say, I would not be where I am today without my alma mater. And I go to a university at the risk of being controversial, I would say there are some things I give to from my universe, from Duke University, but
Hmm.
there are very few things that I would actually give to, and I don't
Yeah.
think I would give to the institution itself. My wife and I support a group called the Center for Christianity and Scholarship at
Hmm.
Duke that is kind of bridging faith and academics, and doing some really wonderful work. But I think it's interesting as a cause area to give to, this idea of Christian higher education and the kind of profound transformations that could be happening, that do happen in college. I
Hmm.
think people change in college. I think everyone changes in college, and the question is it for the better or for the worse?
Hmm. Yeah. True.
um, and so I'm curious about like what you think is the impact when people write checks to Truett McConnell. Like, what's the
Hmm.
impact in the lives of students? What's the impact in the lives of, or in the kind of kingdom of God,
Hmm.
being more, on earth as it is in heaven?
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot to unpack there, Brian. There
That's
is a
why we're doing
lot to
this.
unpack.
That's why we're doing this, Stacey. We got
Um,
time.
I love higher ed. I love the age. I love the purpose. I love everything about it. But just to be real today, there are secular most of your bigger state schools that everybody wants to go to are secular schools, and I'm not going to list any by name. I don't need to. They're good schools. Uh, uh, you know, I'm not going to say anything bad about those schools. Um, then there are Christian. There's varying. I'll just be honest. There's varying levels of Christian schools. Some are just Christian
Yeah.
by name only. Some are Christian because they offer a chapel and you can choose whether or not to go to attend. Um, the great thing about what I do as a business professor at Truett McConnell University, when I go into a business class that I'm teaching, let's just say marketing, I'm able to talk about marketing, but I'm also taught every day. I'm also able to talk about Jesus. And what does
Yeah.
my relationship with Jesus have to do with marketing, or how I behave as a marketing professional, how I interact with people as a marketing professional, or how I handle money? I teach personal finance. Your relationship with Jesus Christ or as a believer has everything to do with how you handle money. Everything. And you're not going to get that at a lot of the secular schools. So when you, let me say it this way. This might be a little controversial. I hope I'm not going to get us in trouble.
Nah, you're not getting me in trouble. I love controversy.
It's
That sounds like a joke, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, and again, just being real. It's I'm a sports guy. You might be a sports guy. What's happening in college, big time college sports today? You're talking about 50, 60, 70 million dollar buyouts of coaches. Buyouts, not their salary, buyouts. So you're paying a coach to leave and giving them $70 million. There's some schools out there, big schools, that are paying 3 former head coaches. Why do I bring that up? Because time and time and time and time again, folks will write checks to these big schools, these big secular schools, that we can debate if at times or is it a conflict with their belief system and values. But it would be a very short debate if we said, hey, is paying a coach $70 million to go away being a good steward of God's resources? Is it a good steward of God's resources paying a coach $70 million to go away? I don't think so. So we don't do that stuff. We turning back to Christian higher education, our role is not about spending $70 million for coaches to go away. Our role is help young people grow in their faith, to find their calling in life, equip them with the skills and the resources they need to be successful within that calling. But what we do differently here at Truett McConnell University is that no matter your major, whether you're in education or nursing or business, psychology, public safety or whatever, we've got 10 different schools here. When you graduate with a minor in the Great Commission. So you take classes, Bible classes, missions classes, theology classes, and you are equipped and prepared to share the gospel intelligently, knowing what you're talking about. We fund many mission trips with our students. Many of our schools do mission trips regularly. So I would ask folks that do give to higher ed, what are they giving the money for? Because some of those schools that have these big TV contracts that are paying $70 million for coaches to go away, they don't need the money. They're getting tons of television contract money. They're getting tons of state tax revenue. They're getting tons of money, tons and tons, and they're dripping in cash. Many of them. And not to dog on your university, what's the endowment?
No, dog on it.
Duke doesn't need your money.
Duke does not. This is why
endowment.
Right. This is why I don't give to Duke. I mean, I give to the Center for Christianity and Scholarship, which is now this kind of Duke affiliated institution. But would I write a check just to kind of Duke? No.
Yeah.
And I don't. And I have a heart for Duke students and, campus ministries there, still connected to those. And part because it's this kind of like contested space where, like a lot of people go to Duke and start out as Christian, or when I was there, it was true. A lot of people would go to Duke and they would be, grew up in the church and they'd leave the faith in college.
Absolutely. And a lot of times it's the faculty that are making them or causing them to question their faith. I mean, I know of a young man who very recently, and I know this young man well, who very recently goes to a freshman class at a large state university, and the professor is using all kinds of profanity in the class.
Yeah.
You don't have that at Truett McConnell University. Every class is 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 taught from a biblical worldview.
Yeah.
You know, all of our professors have pledged their uh, belief. I mean, it's just completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, Stacey, I think that I've heard you share that before in our previous conversation, and honestly, that feels almost tame
Yeah. Well,
compared to
let me
some of
ask you
the
this.
some of the experience I had in classrooms at Duke.
Totally. Um, I'll add this. You know, I forgot where I was going, but it was important, Brian. Forgot where I was
Yeah.
going with it.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I mean, I would like to share a story. Maybe this will jog the memory of maybe we could just continue to contrast the kind of educational experience people have at Truett McConnell and there are Christian professors at Duke. You know, the Center for Christianity Scholarship, they have something like, 60 or 70, it might be more than that now, faculty on campus who have said, I want to be affiliated with the center. I'm a believer. And so that's cool to see. There's a national movement of Christian study centers. There's a group called the Consortium of Christian Study Centers where, there's these centers of Christian kind of academic thought, connected to these large secular universities, public universities, and private universities. But I did have this experience in college where, I'll share a couple stories if that's all right, Stacey.
yeah.
But I was taking a class called The Prisoner's Dilemma in Distributive Justice. It was an economics class. Interesting. It's about game theory. And, they talk about game theory and ethics and a kind of technical econ class. I was an econ major. And in the first day of the class, my professor, who's actually happens to be a pretty famous atheist, says, is giving an overview of ethics. And he says, there's these different kind of ethical theories. And some people say, this is a word for word quote. He said, some people say you can get your ethics from things like the 10 Commandments, but we're not going to deal with any stupid ways of thinking in this class. And it's like, if you can,
Grab your attention.
This is not a class about ethics or philosophy or anything. This is is an econ class, and he's just like, I can't resist, poking at evangelical Christians. And again, this is a very kind of famous belligerent atheist.
A lot of people get free passes at poking at us,
Yeah,
and a lot of times
that's right.
we don't defend our faith. We just let it go.
Yeah,
Which kind of manifests more of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this professor is literally the philosophy 101 professor and so, yeah, I mean, his like essay prompts are like, explore why evolution and creationism are incompatible. It's like, that's the prompt, is like, this is a leading question here. But,
well, it's interesting.
So I did have those experiences.
Talking about creationism, all of our science classes are taught from the perspective of creation.
Yeah.
In fact, some of the larger state schools will not accept our biology class as a transfer credit because of that very reason.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, tell me what else is the impact on, we've kind of been talking here around the impact on students of having a college environment that is, encourages people to grow in their faith, where you're asking a question in the classroom like, what does following Jesus have to do with marketing?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I love that you brought that up. I mean, that's so interesting, but that's so important. I mean, I even think about marketing, so much of marketing is driven around scarcity and making us feel like we don't have enough, that, the use of kind of like sexuality in marketing is a big part. I mean, there's so many tactics that are used that feel actually antithetical to our faith in marketing. And if you're not getting trained in an environment where you're learning business, but you're saying, actually, how do we do this in a way that we're not compromising on our faith, then you just kind of go with the norms.
And it's easy to be, And we talk about this in class. We talk about real life
Right.
scenarios where once you get off this campus, which is it's easy to be a Christian on a Christian college campus, right? You
Right.
get in the real world, you get a job, you're working with non-believers, their ethical standards might be completely different than yours, and
Right.
now all of a sudden you're asked to do things that don't fit your belief system. I've been there as working in corporate America. I
Yep.
have been asked to do things that that I believed were wrong, that I believed were unethical, that I believed did not comply with my belief system. But if we don't teach young people the truth and say, look, that's going to happen. Here's some ways to you need to be prepared for it. Here's some ways to handle it. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to decide as a young professional, okay, am I willing to blur the lines? Am I willing to live in the gray area? Am I willing to do those things? Or am I serious about my faith? And I'm going to let that be the constant, and whatever else happens, and I'm good with it. Am I going to give up that big corporate job? It's what Brian, what I have found out in my life, and again, I'm getting a little older. I'm certainly on the back end of my career, as I'm thinking about landing the plane in retirement. God's never let me down. The times, the things, those crossroads, those opportunity costs, if you will, that I thought I was giving up because I didn't want to bend my belief system. God's never let me down. I've never lost anything. I've never, I've never felt like I've lost anything. So I just encourage young people to, stick to what Jesus is telling us. And you know what? It's going to be good. So in marketing, if you're asked to do some unethical things, and there are on some shady advertising things going on at sometimes, don't get involved with that. Be ethical, do the right thing. I was as a believer, getting back to something that we were talking about earlier, when Ivy and I'm trying to remember when this was. I don't know, 10 years ago, 10, 11, 12 years ago or so. We've been married for 25 years, so we've been married at that point, I don't know, uh, uh, 14, 15 years. But we decided we were given a lot of different things. We were trying to be generous, but we were given a lot of different things. But we made the decision that, from this point forward, we're only going to give to things that help build the kingdom, that make a kingdom impact. And that was a significant step in our marriage. It was a significant step in our giving. We try to ramp up our giving, but part of that is we want an ROI. And we don't say that in an ugly way, but we want to make sure that our money it's really not ours. Going back to what I said, it's all God's, but as a steward of God, temporary, because I'm not going to be here long. I'll be dead and gone in a blink of an eye. As a temporary steward of God's resources, it is my obligation as a Christian to make sure His money is used wisely. When I teach personal finance. When I talk about investing, and next week, actually this Thursday, I start talking about investing. And I will start off talking about the parable of the talents. God wants us to have an ROI. We got to be smart in how we give. And there are many generous people out there, many generous people. Sometimes they may not know where their money's going. And I would counsel those folks, it is important for us to know where our money's going. It's important for us to figure
Amen.
out, hey, the kingdom has got a great ROI on this investment.
Mm-hmm.
But if these folks over here that say that they're working for the kingdom as well, but my money's not doing a lot there. So
you're preaching to the choir on that one. Stacy, and and you're identifying something that we care a lot about simple charity as philanthropic advisors, but also research shows that there is a gap that, like what you're describing, 80% of affluent donors say that they don't monitor or evaluate the impact of their giving. About 3 out of 5 affluent donors, and this is people who are giving, right? This isn't just everyone. This is if you're wealthy and you give, 80% say I don't monitor impact. 3 out of 5 say I don't know if my giving is making a difference. And so I think this idea of where are those kind of high kingdom ROI giving opportunities, I think it is worth asking, like, Christian higher education, this opportunity to shape young people in a context where they're being trained to go into all these different sectors. They're going into business, they're going into healthcare, they're going into, sports management, whatever sector of society, to have a DNA of biblical values that you're bringing to that. And then the idea of being, a minor in the Great Commission, or a certificate in the Great Commission, of like actually an ability to like confidently and clearly articulate the gospel, that we are sinners, all of us, that there is grace in the person of Jesus, that we can have a relationship with him, that Jesus accomplished this work on the cross, that redeems us from our sins, restores us to a right relationship with God, that he's coming back, he's restoring all things, and so I think having, I think it is interesting just to hear you, I guess, and to think with you around the case for Kingdom ROI. What else was influential in your giving journey? Because I kind of asked about that. I don't know if we went very deep there, but were there any moments that you're working as a salesperson for managing a team of 80 people, probably making we have to talk about how much money you're making, but a lot of money. It
was good.
It was good. Yeah.
It was good.
I'm assuming it was good.
God was good. Now, it was stressful beyond belief, but it was good.
But from a financial perspective, doing really well.
Yeah.
And was there any moments that helped shape kind of this desire to give, and even that moment of wanting to be more intentional in your giving? I'm curious about what catalyzed that.
There was a apex, if you will. Ivy and I have been involved with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, for many years.
I love that ministry.
Talk about ROI.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great ROI.
Yeah.
But we were invited to go to a national FCA conference. I'm trying to remember. I mean, this was, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago or so, I guess. I don't know. A lot happened about that time, but we went to this conference and we were challenged. I mean, we spent a weekend with just some phenomenal people, really diving into in scripture and having time within that to communicate as a couple about what's important, and prioritizing things, and talking about money, which is a good thing for Christians to talk about money. Sometimes we get weird. Christians sometimes get weird about money.
Oh my gosh.
It's okay. And you know what? I talk in my business classes. It's a great thing for Christians to be successful and make a lot of money. It's not making the money that's the bad part. It's what you do with it, and how the money can cause you to separate or lose focus from Christ and go down some bad roads. But, churches are built from money. Missionaries are sponsored by money. I mean, there are many different things that our ability to raise money can help facilitate. But going back to your point, that at the end of that conference, the FCA conference that we went to, they really challenged us to stretch our giving, and that if it doesn't pinch a little, if it doesn't hurt a little, if your lifestyle has not been altered at all by what you're giving, then that's not, there's no testament of faith, because faith is dealing with the unknown, right? And if I'm giving beyond what I is comfortable to me, I've got to have faith, because I don't know how things are going to work out.
Mm.
So it radically changed how we give, and we give to a number of different kingdom-minded charities. Um, we try to stretch ourselves, but again, God always brings it back.
Right.
Always brings it back.
Yeah.
I'll give you one example. It was coming out of that event actually.
Mm.
We decided we talked a lot about it, we prayed a lot about it, and we both came up with a number. We had that number in our mind that God was putting on our heart, and we shared it with each other, and we both had the same number. And it was a stretch. I mean, we have never given anything remotely close to that. I mean, it was a stretch, and it was a multi-year commitment. And we weren't really sure, to be honest with you, how it was all going to work out. I mean, we really weren't sure. Um,
What was the source of that anxiety? I'm curious because this is a
well,
gift to
just because we
FCA.
had never given that kind of money before,
Yeah.
we
So
had
there's
never given just
was
not.
it? Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Well, I'm curious about like, was it a fear, or not to say that there was fear, there was anxiety, but just the idea of kind of this like this is a new stretch goal. Was it because of concerns of how the money would be used, or concerns
No,
of
I think it was a safety
kind of
net thing.
personally, huh?
I think it was
Yeah.
more of like a safety net type of thing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was a good. Yeah,
When we build up stuff, sometimes we feel a little more confident because we've got
yeah,
more in the storehouse, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, and it was kind of emptying the storehouse, not knowing how, when, if it would be filled back up
right.
was probably the biggest adjustment for us at that. Now we don't worry about it. I mean, God's got it.
Yeah,
But then as a young couple figuring out how to listen to God's calling and giving, it was a big step for us. It was a big change
yeah.
for us. But so we made that commitment. That was like in February, maybe, I think, somewhere. Yeah, actually, you know what? That's funny. We were in San Diego, and it was the week after Torrey Pines they played their tournament. Torrey Pines had their PGA tournament this last weekend, so it would have been almost within a few days of today. That's funny.
Mm.
Anyway, that April, we had no idea, but we got a tax return within a nickel of what we were given that year.
Jeez, wow.
We had no idea. I mean, it came out of nowhere within a nickel.
Yeah,
So that got our attention.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think it's interesting giving wealth as I even think of it like there's a big difference between giving wealth and giving kind of income, or kind of or giving a strategic grant versus giving kind of a contribution, to actually when there's some commas and zeros. I think I'm young, like my wife and I are not doing that kind of giving, to be clear. But in my role as a philanthropic advisor and working with wealthy families and thinking through these things, I think it's a different experience, and I do think it is this opportunity to trust God and to kind of dethrone wealth and money. I mean, we live in a very wealthy country. We live in a country with tens of millions of millionaires. So if you look at the data of kind of high net worth individuals, and I think ultra high net worth people in this country, I think there's like 6 million or something. And so defining that, or sorry, not ultra high net worth. And if you define that over, $5 million in assets or something like that. All this to say, those numbers are not precise. You can Google them if you want to know them. We live in a country where there are a lot of people with significant wealth and a lot of Christians who have wealth such that they will never run out of money. They're financially independent, and then some. You know what I mean? So and the idea of actually using that wealth for the kingdom. I think there's lots of barriers for why wealthy Christians don't do that more. I think one of them is not knowing where to give, maybe
Mm.
having a negative giving experience, maybe not seeing the ROI,
Yeah.
but I think another one is this kind of, like, from what I can tell, being in my 20s and I don't have significant independent wealth, I think wealth is kind of like a warm blanket. This is the
It
metaphor I've been
is
using.
totally.
It's like, and so to take it off is like, oh, it's kind of
It's that
uncomfortable.
security blanket. You're open
Yeah.
to the world. You're open to the elements
You're
at that
vulnerable again.
point. It's
You were vulnerable in your 20s. I'm still vulnerable. Like
yeah.
young kids, we're getting started. And then you get out of that season of vulnerability, but to willingly go back to being vulnerable again, even if it's just in a small way,
But isn't that a
is
demonstration of our faith?
very uncomfortable. And I think you can only do it if you trust God.
Totally.
And
In a lot of along those same vein, I think a lot of because of that they want that a lot of us want that security blanket. We say, okay, well we're going to give. We believe in giving. God calls us to give. We're going to put it in our estate. So
yeah,
once we're gone, then we'll get it. Well, you miss so many opportunities that way. And
mm,
there's this thing called time value of money, right?
mm,
The value of money today is not the same value as it is in the future. And if you're able, we all are able, but if you give money now while you're living, you're able to see that ROI. You're able to see the
yeah,
benefit, and that whatever that kingdom-minded charity may be, they're able to build from it as well. So there are a lot of, I'm not a super expert on all of them, but there are a lot of different mechanisms to be able to give money now, through your estate, and then instead of waiting until you
yeah.
pass along. So I would encourage our listeners to look into their legacy giving. In fact, we're host. To, I probably shouldn't plug us, but we're
Go for
hosting
it,
a
please.
webinar on estate giving. We're partnering. Truett McConnell University is partnering with the Georgia Baptist Foundation to host a webinar about estate planning. That will just anybody that wants to come on can jump on, and we just walk through here. Here's what the Bible says about giving. Here's why it's prudent as a believer to plan your
Mm,
estate. Here are some tactics. Here are some things that you can use in your own estate planning. And
yeah,
if that's something you want to pursue and you need some legal help in doing those documents,
yeah.
here's some resources for some legal help that you can use. So
I love that.
um, that will be April 19th at 2 o'clock, and we'll get
Hey,
information somehow.
yeah, great. Yeah, I can share information in the show notes, and probably could find it on Truett McConnell's website. I'm glad you brought up estate planning. I do think it is, I think, to put it very bluntly, it does not require faith to leave money to a kingdom-minded charity and an estate plan.
Yeah.
It requires faith to give now and trust God to provide and to trust God for security. That said, I do think leaving money to charities in an estate plan is a phenomenal gift and way to build a legacy. So I'm not trying to diss that as a strategy. And I heard at a National Christian Foundation event about a year ago that Americans give around 500 to now $600 billion a year. Over the next 20 years, Americans will give something like $12 trillion.
Oh, it's
And
crazy.
over the next 20 years, there will be an additional $12 trillion passed to nonprofits and estate plans. So that's about half of all giving, all philanthropy over the next 20 years with the great wealth transfer will be, giving by bequest. And that's insane, but to your point, if like work with a good financial advisor, I'm not saying be unwise here, but I think
Yeah.
what a good financial advisor can do, or even a kingdom advisor, if you're familiar with that network, but is actually help folks create a financial plan such that they know how much is enough and
Yeah.
then can be freed up to be kind of lavishly generous with the rest,
Yeah.
with this kind of security of knowing, I have a plan, and I'm not going to run out of money.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I know we met through a mutual friend with National Christian Foundation, and our university partners with National Christian Foundation. My wife and I, we have a donor advised fund with National Christian Foundation. I'm a big believer in what they do, and I'm grateful for what they do. But NCF would tell you 90% of the wealth is in non-cash assets. They talk about
right.
this all the time. So when we're
Yeah.
giving, if we want to be able to be more strategic in our giving, if we want to be able to stretch ourselves in our giving, we want to just be able to give a little bit more to those kingdom charities that we're passionate about. There are strategies to be able to donate those non-cash assets in a manner that not only significantly saves tax liability for you as the donor, but it also provides a greater amount of funds for that institution receiving that. As an example, if you've got, let's say, in my wife and I, we've got some real estate. We own a real estate investment business as well, and let's say we want to give one of our rental properties. We want to sell one of our rental properties and give that money to our donor advised fund, and then direct it to a charity. Well, we can do that. We can sell it, and what the money that we net off that sale, we can give all of it or a portion of it to NCF or any other charity. Um, well, you're leaving money on the table, because if you were to be able to give that asset before you sell it, you give the asset to NCF as an example. You get the full value, the full fair market value of that. And then the charity is going to get a lot more once it's directed. So there are many strategies about doing that. And I would really encourage folks to look at those strategies about non-cash gifts. Ivy and I have significantly, uh, uh, well, we've spent a lot more time in strategic planning as we talk about giving on looking at non-cash gifts.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm so glad you brought that up, Stacy. And yeah, great shout out to National Christian Foundation, and their team is excellent and very capable of walking folks through that process if
Yeah.
they're interested in learning more. And in our last few minutes, I want to talk about Truett McConnell specifically, and what do you see as kind of special about the institution, and yeah, make the case for why folks should give to Truett McConnell, and why that's a strong kingdom ROI.
Sure. I'll try to be as succinct as possible. I will share this as well. Today, yesterday and today, we announced that we've got a new president, Dr. Larry Lyon. We're super excited about him. He's coming to us from the New Orleans Theological Seminary. He'll be starting full time very soon. Glad to have him on board. Truett McConnell, we've got about but depending on the semester, 600 to 700 traditional full-time residential students on campus. About roughly 450 of those are student athletes. We have the same amount of student athletes as University of Georgia.
Wow.
Even though we're much smaller, we have a large. And what's different about us, one of the many things that's different about us, if you receive an athletic scholarship at Truett McConnell University, you're considered a leader on campus. So we have a little bit more stringent recruiting for athletic scholarship recipients, in that you've got to be a professed believer. You have to be baptized by immersion according to our Baptist faith. We're a Baptist college. And then you have to have a pastoral letter of recommendation. So you can imagine how that changes the recruiting landscape for us versus other schools. But and I remember when I first became an athletic director, someone told me, you'll never win at a Christian school because you have these recruiting limitations. And I don't know how many championships ago, 12, 15 championships ago. But we've won a bunch of championships by sticking to our beliefs. We also do a ton of discipleship. Our coaches are required to do weekly discipleship. Required.
Wow.
We have a lot of different groups, spiritual groups on campus that do discipleship. Our RAs and our resident advisors in the dorms, they're required to do discipleship. So we are very intentional. Yes, we have chapel every week. You're required to go to chapel. Yes, if you graduate with a degree, you're going to earn a minor in the Great Commission, so you're going to go do those classes. But more than that, we've built the campus so that our staff walks alongside these students and disciples them. So we like to say that we're creating a generation of warriors for Christ. So I would turn the question around. I would ask, what's more important? Giving a university money that's paying their coach $70 million to go away? Or giving a university money that's helping folks grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ, find their calling in life, equipping them to be successful in that professional calling, whether it's being a nurse or a teacher or whatever, and then being able to be equipped to be able to share the gospel. I mean, when I think about what would the world look like if every young person went to a Christian college, and when I say Christian college, I mean that's serious, not just name only.
Yeah.
But serious about intentional discipleship and equipping those young people to share the gospel. Brian, the world will look completely different. And I just believe, hey, we gotta put our money where our mouth is. If we really believe in it, we've got to support these things. And if it's not Truett McConnell, maybe it's FCA, maybe it's a Samaritan's Purse, which is a great organization. It doesn't have to be Truett McConnell. But I want to challenge folks. Listen, if you're a believer, we've got to put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good, Stacy. It's good. I'm so glad to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
You made me laugh. You made me all kinds of stuff.
Oh man. I really am just grateful, and you've walked the path as someone who's raising money now for a mission, for a kingdom mission, but then also the path of a giver and navigating that. And I just learned a lot from our conversation, and I'm just grateful for your willingness to share this with me and with our listeners. As we're closing up, what is one thing you're learning in this season of life about what it means to love like Jesus?
Yeah, I would say just love more, love deeper. The first greatest commandment, love God with all your heart, and then love others. And that's every day I hear that every day. Love Jesus, love others. And sometimes it's not easy loving others. But it doesn't say Jesus didn't say love others when it's easy or love others when you like it. And I'm not going to, listen, I'm not a perfect person. I'm a sinful creature, and sometimes I struggle with that, but God's called us to do it. So I would just encourage everybody, love Jesus, love others. The world would be such a better place if we all did that.
The invitation to grow this week is to reach out to a college student to encourage them in this spring semester grind. Maybe send them a text of encouragement or a verse or even a physical note. Thank you so much to Dr. Stacy Hall for joining me on the show. If you have feedback on this episode, you can reach me at brian@simplecharity.org. Next time on the show, a conversation with a financial counselor about the hundreds of billions of dollars accumulating in donor-advised funds. I hope you join me as we continue to learn to love generously like Jesus. Have a great week. See you next time.